Welcome to Circus Maximus, everybody. I'm your host, Nick Spiro. Today is October 9th, 2014. I've got a pretty interesting show lined up for you guys today. I've got a guest. His name is Ognir. That's the name he goes by on the internet. And he is from Ireland, but he resides in the Switzerland-French border, and he's in the European Union, and he travels a bit about and sees all over Europe, and he does a podcast every so often. He was a lot more into the, what would you say, the Jew-wise type of information a lot earlier on than most people. I came across his work back in 2008, and he put out information, a lot of debating going on at the time when I was researching. A lot of people were going back and forth. Is it the Jesuits or is it the Zionists? So that's kind of like how I came across his work, and I know that he had some pretty tight relations with the people over at IamTheWitness.com with Daryl Bradford Smith, and there was Eric Hudschmidt, and there was Christopher Ballin. Looks like it's just Daryl Bradford Smith over there now. And Ognir, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I got in touch with you through Delclaw. Joe, and who hosts the show here over at Outside Radio, and we do have some guests, or not guests, but hosts besides myself, like Charles Giuliani and John Friend. I'm not sure if you heard of those guys. I think you know of Charles Giuliani, of course.
No, both of them. I've been on Charles a couple of times. John, I know as well.
Okay, great. And
Joe, I'd just like to say, Joe Delacroix is not a voice from the internet, referring to a previous statement that you made about Daryl Bradford Smith and Eric Hudschmidt, because you kind of you mixed it up a little bit. I was never really involved with Eric Hudschmidt, who made the famous statement about just being a voice on the internet. Our colleague here tonight is a real person that I've actually met in person, and he knows me and I know him. So I'm glad to be on. I run the Info Underground. It's funny, kind of, looking back at what's happened. You're saying you were listening to me in 2008. In 2008, I won't say I'd figured it out, but in 2008, I knew who did 9/11. So. There are several other radio talk show hosts. Let's not talk about Alex Jones. Let's just mention Alex Jones, that in 2011, he was just kind of figuring out who did 9/11. So we're going back. I'm a computer guy. I discovered a software called BitTorrent one day, and I discovered that if you download the BitTorrent, you could download a movie or a radio program or whatever it was. And I got into it. And one of the very first documentaries I downloaded was an Alex Jones show documentary. One of his very first ones against the UNESCO or one of those. And that kind of woke me up. That kind of tied me into 9/11. That didn't fit in very easy with me. And I was an Alex Jones fan for at least a year, which brought me into Conspiracy Central. Before that, and I needed an education, and I got it from I would say a Muslim guy, an Arab guy, a Muslim guy that I don't know. He just kind of stuck me with it. Kept on tapping me with a little stick, and he said, "Keep looking at the Jews. Keep looking at the Jews." And I was, what? They would do 9/11? What? And this guy kept tapping me with a stick until I said, "Okay, I'll have to look into it." AJ doesn't say this. AJ doesn't say that. And I looked into it, and I said, "What? They run the banking system?" I said, "That's not possible." Looked into that. They run Hollywood, they run basically everything. And one night there was a certain awakening, was the night that I understood that that the Jews run the fractional reserve banking system. The Rothschild Jews run the fractional reserve banking system, and that was quite a big night for me. And it didn't just last. This has been part of my education, that we have a certain tribe. We have a certain tribe that run the banking system. So money is not actually an element. Countries can go down if it's Ireland, Portugal, Italy. We're talking about the European kind of financial thing, Greece and whatever, since 2008. But this thing goes way back. How they privatize, how they force the hands of President Wilson in 1913 to sign on the bottom line, to sign the piece of paper. So you kind of asked me where I came in from. That is the education I got. Fractional reserve banking. Alex Jones didn't give it to me. He's a shill. As the people that have followed me for a long time would know, that is just the way it is. That is just kind of domineering of the alternative media, because the alternative media, we have no money, we have nothing, we don't have currency. It's currency. Alex Jones has a lot of currency, and a lot of them have a lot of currency, and when they have easy currency, you just need to listen to them for about 15 minutes and they're shilling. So that's basically where I am. I haven't listened to Alex Jones in a long time. But that's how I came into the movement. And then, we went on and I joined Conspiracy Central when it was, I think we had a couple of thousand members. And we went on, it became a very big forum. We had about 70,000 members, but hundreds, maybe millions of people downloaded the torrents. And these were for me, these were mind-opening videos about alternative energy, problems with the vaccines. And we're going back 10 years. Now we know that there's problems with the vaccines, that we know. But waking up 10 years ago, a couple of 2 years after 9/11, trying to figure out what's going on. That's where I was. As I said, until I kind of veered off on the banking system. You can run, the media bosses are another issue. The media bosses and the bankers, these are the people that are non-elected. Like in Europe, none of our leaders are actually elected prime ministers. They may be. I'm talking about in Europe. None of these people are elected, and that's the system that we have. And they will go and protect all of their banker friends that they've been doing since 2008. And I've been bitching since probably the night I met our good friend.
Now, with the Arab that approached you with the Jewish topic, would that happen to have been Converse?
No. Oh, absolutely no. This is long before a Converse.
Okay.
We're going back to the forums on Conspiracy Central. We're probably talking about 2005. I probably, kind of woke up out of a dream, and I lived in a dream before that. We're probably about 2003, 2004, and about 2005, this guy, and for the hell of me, I can't remember his name. He tapped me with stuff. Comments, just little comments that you as an administrator, as I was of Conspiracy Central, I had to check out some facts. This is the day, kind of the days that you could do Google searches that that the NSA aren't actually looking at your Google searches. Just kind of prior to those days, after 9/11. We were open, they opened Pandora's box for us, which is, not too far what they're doing now with, Syria, Turkey, Iran, Iraq, the whole Middle East could be the same. But that's kind of what woke me up, and I got involved in Conspiracy Central fairly early. Yeah, I think my main message at the time, wasn't what it is now, but it was basically to wake more people up. Have them aware that there were the pedophiles, chemtrails, vaccines, 9/11. There were a multitude of issues that were open. You just need to pull people in, open up their minds. It was basically a question of open up opening up my own mind at the same time to alternative reality. Now that my mind is open, I can turn on the TV, in a couple of languages, and I know that it's all completely bullshit. For example, the most recent thing is the Ukraine, eastern Ukraine, the absolute slaughter of women and children, like in Gaza, same people. And these guys with their little Nazi tattoos on their helmets that are, fighting against these poor. And the people are Russian people, are Russian-speaking people, and they're firing in bombs into eastern Ukraine, into Donetsk, into schools, into hospitals. What has changed? So, now that you know that you can read past the news, and actually listening to the news is quite annoying because it's such, you know what to expect.
It's all bullocks anyway.
Absolutely.
Basically, in a nutshell, once you've already gotten a dose of what the media is all about, we realize that they're just trying to put out the information that they want us to know, just for us to consume it, to steer us in directions, to create a sense of fear throughout that particular area that they're putting out the propaganda. And I know in America, it's a constant fear-based mind control that's taken place. I don't know how European news is so much. I don't listen to the news out there, but out here it's definitely fear-based. What would you say? How is it like that over there in Europe as well?
I don't listen to mainstream media, so you probably do. Listen, I absorb mainstream information: U.S., French, Swiss, European, Irish, South American. I absorb the news. We have in the U.S. now. You're inviting in Ebola people. You're sending troops into an Ebola area. Alex Jones recently was saying shut off the borders, probably with Sierra Leone and Liberia and different places, different countries in Africa. So I know it's a hoax. Instantly, it's another. If Alex Jones is involved in anything, then it's one of the 3,000 people have died of Ebola so far.
The number 3,000 is kind of used throughout history. Nebuchadnezzar was crucified with 3,000 other Babylonians. Then we had 3,000 in 9/11. There's 3,000 soldiers that went to Liberia to fight Ebola. I guess 3,000 died from Ebola.
That's an interesting one. The 3,000, you're sending probably young soldiers into soldiers going to be wearing suits. I mean, how's that going to work? You're going to shoot on sight? Insane foreign policy, insane. It's this is all the makings of the plague that, if you've looked at Jewish media for the last, I'm 47, I'm going on 48. I've grown up with Jewish media, zombies, all sorts of mad diseases can come. People will accept it. People are accepting the program. We have 3,000 deaths now. As our good friend Joe knows, who'll be around my age. When I grew up in Ireland, we had little boxes up on the in school to donate, and we donated to the black babies, the millions. And then I grew up with millions of people starving in Africa. And Ireland has always been a very donated more. When we had in 1985 the Bob Geldof thing, the Irish people donated, but we always donated because on the news we had millions of people dying of starvation, millions of Africans, millions of Somalis, Eritreans, or whatever were dying of starvation, and our good friend can verify that or not. But millions, and now we have 3,000 deaths. They're going to screen people. They're going to, point some sort of a laser device at you when you get off a plane from Africa. If the disease is already airborne, which it seems to be, it's already spread. So I'm not quite buying into what the media. But in Europe, you asked me about European media.
Well, there's a Ebola
I just
patient in
came
Spain right
into
now. So
mainly at the moment. I listen to French news. Ebola is in Spain, which is right next door to France, but there's no word. They're talking about in French news, which you might find is funny, is the 2017 election of the president. You might find that funny. Nicolas Sarkozy has come back on the political scene, the ex-president. He's back. But normally in France, ex-presidents never come back. You know, they're De Gaulle and all these other idiots and Chirac and these guys. And they never come back, and they do their terms. They do all the corruption, all the stuff, and have leaked cases against them for 20 years. They never do any time. But there's not too much. They talk about JISIL. They call them the Islamic State or ISIS or ISIL. I call them JISIL, which is the Jewish state of Syria, Iraq, and Levant. They don't mention that.
Well, here's what Sarkozy's talking about for Europe. The goal is to meet the challenge of racial inbreeding, the challenge of racial inbreeding that faces us in the 21st century. It's not a choice, it's an obligation, it's imperative. We cannot do otherwise. We risk finding ourselves confronted with major problems. We must change, therefore we will change. We are going to change all the same time in business and administration and education and the political parties, and we will obligate ourselves as to results. So basically, in a nutshell, he's following the UN agenda or the Jewish agenda to have Europe bred out of its existence, pretty much like white genocide. You're over in the Switzerland area. Do you see a lot of foreigners, non-whites in Europe?
Like everywhere. Exactly like everywhere. But let me just a little bit of additional information on Nicolas Sarkozy, and we can talk about we can move on to Switzerland afterwards. Sarkozy is up to his neck in legal allegations of corruption, weapons, money from weapons sales. Have you ever heard of that? Like in DC, money from weapons sales doesn't keep politicians going around. But there's never anything with his signature on it. You know, the guy, he'd get away. But France absolutely needs a Zionist guy there because they're full of Jews. They already have the prime minister, he's a Jewish guy. The foreign minister, he's a Jewish guy. The financial minister, he's a Jewish guy. And then they have these other people that show up. I don't know who these people are, but they show up and they're not really elected, and they kind of run France. And Sarkozy wants to kind of come back. I don't know what he wants to do because he's the same. He likes to go in front of the Wailing Wall and do his stuff. He's one of the, but it's the whole political environment is absolutely corrupt. We know that. And I fail to understand why people don't say, a no vote. People don't vote. That's stupid. Oh, you don't vote. If we don't vote, all of us don't vote. The system, we kind of bring to an end this corrupt political system that we have. Whether it's in Spain, let's talk about Spain. Let's talk about France. Let's talk about Germany. Let's talk about the UK. Let's talk about all the places that the Zionist little helpers run. And, I know a couple of those countries. I live in a couple of them.
So basically, those would be the Shabbos Goy, is what you're referring to.
Well,
the people that are not Jewish, but are doing the Jewish agenda for the Jews.
Well, if we're talking about France, I'm not even talking about the Jewish helpers. They're all Jewish. I mean, I don't understand. They're all Jewish. There's no, they're friends of all this. The financial minister, the foreign minister, the prime minister, they're Jewish. They love Israel. They're on the record. They love Israel. During the 51-day annihilation of 3-year-old Hamas generals and 89-year-old grandmother generals of Hamas that Israel killed. These guys were off the record. They're off the. They've made people that have listened to the Ognir over the years. If you have made the choice, and the Israelis make it, they'll force you into doing it. If you accept what they're doing, which I absolutely totally disagree with, it's absolutely shocking. But people, politicians, lawyers, judges, cops, politicians, this is what we're faced up against. Absolutely, we have we have no funding. We infight. We have no. I think you're going to bring up another issue, which is of race. This is another issue, and actually, let me start off about race.
Go ahead.
Which I don't normally talk about. I was recently at a table with several Africans from Rwanda, and a couple of. It was a mixture of French and English speakers. Because remember, Africa, there are several countries speak English, several countries speak French.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The colons, the colonial powers, and all of this.
Yes.
And I had just come across one of the latest Hollywood movies, 12 Years a Slave, all right? So I just started watching. I watched 5 minutes and I never got back to watching it. But, 20 minutes later, I'm at this table under a beautiful tree in flower, a magnolia tree in flower. And there are a few black people, a few African people in front of me. And I brought up about this film, and they're all going, yeah, oh, yeah. And I had to say, fuck this. No way. I said, hold on. I said, stop. I said, what is this stupid stuff with the white people? I said, this is, the TV stuff. I said, I'm a white person. I come from Ireland. My father came from Ireland. My grandfather came from Ireland. My great-grandfather came from Ireland. As far as I know, going back several generations, maybe a couple of hundred years, my Christian, white, whatever, Irish family have never harmed any black people anywhere because they've never started any wars. So I just asked them, I said, who are these white people? These are the same white people. These are the 1%, the elitists that run. I said, go back to 1850, 1840, and when the slaves are coming in, I said, who had the slaves? Oh, the white people. I said, okay, all right. Look back at who ran the system. How did they buy the slaves? They bought them with alcohol. I said the alcohol was made in several states, in the United States. They shipped that off. They shipped that off to Africa. The Africans, the black African slave masters on the other side, gave the blacks to the slave masters for alcohol or rum or whatever it was. I said, how does that trace back to me? So there is a huge problem here, but it seems to me a lot of semantics about not looking after the real people that control the world, have the whites and blacks fighting. Depending on where you live, you might disagree with my last statement, but my first black person I met was, I think I said it on a recent show, was about 14 years of age. Someone said, there's a nigger in the town, my small little town, and it wasn't even an African, it was a Pakistani guy. And that was my introduction to someone of a different race. I'm not in a particular fight with race. You have to get the race that runs. We have a race that runs the place. We have a group that runs the planet. Blacks don't run the media. Irish don't run the media. Irish don't run the fractioners, our banking system. And a lot of Asians don't do that either. And we can go and sidestep different issues. On my Twitter feed, I prefer to tend towards the financial issues which always tend to be the same.
Oh, on your Twitter feed?
Listen, the other day I'm about 4 years on Twitter. The other day I missed it, but I just tweeted my 40,000 tweets. So I'm at about 40,000 and maybe 10 or 20 tweets, which, you can read me like a book, which is basically what social media is. They want to read you like a book. I'm a pro-Palestinian. I'm an anti-Zionist. I'm an anti-reserve bankist. I'm not a leftist, or left-wing or right-wing. Politics is complete nonsense. And I've been called left-wing. I've been called terrible things. Politics means absolutely zero. Everyone just wants to put a label on something. Oh, he's a right-wing extremist, or he's an anti-Semite, or he's a Holocaust denier. We can't even talk about subjects that are, for example, a subject that was 20 years before I was even born. If I talk about it in certain European countries, they put me in prison.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, the Holocaust being one of them, and I'm sure that's what you're referring to. And that's been one of the main hoaxes of our lifetime, as far as a ongoing usage to control people.
The Holocaust indoctrination started in about 1966, 1967.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 20 years after the war. Yes.
At least. The Jews figured out that they could milk a lot of people for a lot of money. So, they milk a lot of people for, the Germans and the Swiss and the Austrians and the British. They tried it with the French, but de Gaulle said, no way. He said, no way, don't pull that shit on us, because de Gaulle already knew. So they never went after the French. But they'd love to go back and get another 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 billion off the French for all their crimes, for sending all the Jews on the train, because the French sent the Jewish kids on trains. That's a historical fact. You cannot. That is not deniable. That is absolutely accepted. That they shipped them out of France. That is a historical fact, and I'll accept that.
Now, with the Holocaust itself, it just seems not only like it's an industry, but it's allowing these hate crime laws to be passed that protects, it kind of puts a veil around the Jewish people to allow themselves to just act accordingly, to do as they please whenever they see fit. They seem more like the supremacists more than, so then they flip the script all the time, it seems like. Mm-hmm. Flipping the blame over, projecting the blame to someone else, never taking responsibility for what they do. And then it also seems like it's convenient for them to be white one day, but then Jewish another.
It's a tricky one. That's especially when 90% of the DNA is not Semitic. That's a very these are the finer points that need to be talked about. 90% of the Jewish DNA is not Semitic. It's not a debatable subject. It's a known fact, but it's a politically incorrect topic to talk about. So it's not mentioned. People like us would know about this. Of course we know, because it's written in the books. It's we don't make this stuff up. It's just there. If you go and look for it, it's just there in front of you. Why do they have 7 major Ashkenazi DNA sicknesses that are absolutely only reserved to the Ashkenazi Jews? Because that's a race, but it's not the Semitic race. Which this thing about race, it can be very upsetting, because they don't always fit into groups. And the Jews are in 2 groups. Well, I would say 3, maybe 4, but the 2 we know about are the Semitic Jews, the Palestinians, the people that live in the land of the Semite people, And then we have these others, the Ashkenazi Jews, which, you know, the name says something, and they are at least 90%. So they're not at all native to the Middle East, but they can take over. But I think the point is you need to take into consideration that their bosses run the media, their bosses select presidents 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years before he's even born, or someone like Barry Obama.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Barry was selected we still don't know who Barry is. We still don't know who he is. We know he loves to play golf. We know he loves to play golf, but we don't know who he is. No high school friends, university clients, when he was supposed to be a lawyer. His wife, admitted that, he's born in Africa. We don't know whether it's in Africa or in Indonesia. But he was selected. He was selected to put a black man up in front of America and say, you're too stupid to know that we're behind Obama. A lot of people hate Obama, and I hate the waste of energy. I don't like Obama. He's a communist. I don't like Obama. What I dislike is the waste of energy that's going to be spent now in the next 2 years on the next election cycle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to select a silent S in front of elect, silent S, elect, select candidates, but they already know who the president will be. Now, it's a possibility we'll have Jeb Bush, or we'll have Hillary, or maybe Hillary's daughter's baby will. Who knows what they'll bring out on TV? It's amazing. They'll whip out a Bush versus Clinton in 2016, and people will say, "Oh, you better vote. You better sign up to vote." And that's the American people. You're not that bright, and that's why the wool, the wool has been pulled over your eyes at the moment, and the Wall Street bankers are having a really good time. And the American people are suffering, but they don't know why. They don't know why.
Well, being in the belly of the beast, I would say that Hollywood putting off, their social engineering programming.
I read a little thing. Most movies are not made in Hollywood. Made in Bollywood and whatever. And people will tell you that in India, more movies are made in India than in Hollywood, and that is absolutely true. But what I wanted to tie that was what you said was true Hollywood. So I would like to give you a different statistic that 98% of all movies released in cinemas in the world come from Hollywood. Released in cinemas, not India as India.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about cinemas in general. The Jews have had control. It's an interesting thing. I did a little bit of research on this again last night. If we go back to a period, we have to go back 100 years. Go back to the period 1917, 1916, 1915 in Russia. We're in the middle of World War, the Great War. We're in the middle of the Great War. And 1917, 1918, all these Jews are allowed to leave Russia, and they float into America. And before 1921, they had completely overrun Hollywood cinema. They already had the Rothschild money in place. They bought up the media. The people. The thing is, if you run a newspaper, you run a radio, you run a TV station or a website or something that's depending on publicity, the biggest guy that pays you the most money is the most important client. And they already had these people in place. They already had the Central Reserve Bank. They already got their First World War, and they were able to finance with $20 million the Bolshevik Revolution. Now, this money was sent in suitcases. Can you fucking believe it? In suitcases on a ship to Russia to start the Bolshevik Revolution, which is an absolutely, totally Jewish massacre, which went on to many tens of millions of dead. But these people arrive in America. So last night, I start looking at the Marx Brothers. Yeah, I presume you know who the Marx Brothers are?
Yes, the actors during the silent film time, right?
Well, and a bit after the silent. These were the people
During the
guys
Charlie
from
Chaplin
Marx,
time, right?
all Jewish. And they were pushed by the Jewish studios at the time, 1928, 1929. Here we are in 2014. It doesn't make any. I'm telling you, if you look back at the older movies, look at who produced the movies. The MGM guy, I can't even remember the bloody name of the place. All Jewish studios that they'd taken over. So as of the 20s, they'd taken over. I looked at when I have some family over, and let me say, if you see a shapely female, let me say, if you say a shapely female in a very tight clothing, like knickers and kind of oversized, very tight. It's for me, it's a sexy lady. I saw one of these in one of the 29 movies. So they were already changing the sexuality. Just remember, in the 50s, or prior to the 50s, no showing knees and everything had to be down. These guys were already changing, and they're not Jews, because people think they're all Jews. Judaism is a religion, and people shouldn't. Some of them are bankers, some of them are communists, some of them are changers of society, changers of morality, changers of family values. The people have struggled for hundreds of years to have this stupid not stupid, but Catholic churches for me is stupid, but a Christian kind of ideology. These people are prepared to change and introduce homos, transsexuals, all sorts. Two kids to grow up with, four husbands, or I don't. This is one of the major fights we have in France at the moment. That the staunch Catholics are up in arms still a year after the vote on homosexual marriage, and they call it equal marriage, but in France they call it the homo marriage. And the staunch Catholics were up in it because they realized that the Jews, through their different countries, are breaking down family values. And when you break down groups, you dilute them, split them up. So you're not looking at who the real group that are controlling the whole planet.
Now, Ognir, you bring up a lot of great points. Back when the Jews from Russia came over to America, that's right around the time of when the alcohol prohibition took place as well. So in my opinion, from my research, that was their buildup, their main machine to get going with the building of Hollywood.
Look at their Canadian brothers that supplied the alcohol and made. Prohibition is just a question of, if you go into your local bar and you go in with your gal and you say, let's go and have a quick drink, and two quick beers and $4 or something, $2 each. These people say, oh no, there's prohibition, you have to pay $12 each. Mm-hmm. And the middlemen were all their friends, and this is how they made money. Look how they got Al Capone, who was not a friend, who was not a member. He wasn't a tribe member. They got him only on taxes. But if we look at the other Jewish mafia members of that time, Mo Dolic, and going on a few years, and these guys, these people were, in the 90s, worshipped by the ADL for their donating. Mo Dolic, this absolutely horrific criminal, later in his life, when he becomes donating to Jewish causes, he becomes a Jewish hero. But Mo Dulwich was not a hero. He was a criminal scumbag.
The Jews definitely used the Sicilian Italians and the Irish as their muscle and their political knowledge
So,
to control certain cities for them.
when you say that they use it, and I have a quick one because you mentioned the Irish and the Italians, and I have a very good buddy who's from Boston. He's a Boston Irish Catholic, and he's in his late 50s at the moment. He's a young son. He's about 14. Beautiful guy, great sportsman, golfer, hockey player, and whatever. But his son knows when he flushes the toilet, the father would say to him, flush it twice, because they're Irish, Boston Irish Catholics. He would say, flush it twice because it's a long way to Italy. And that's the mentality. I'm talking about a joke. He recently said that to me again. So we have our smaller groups, Irish Catholic, Italian Catholic, both white, inner fighting, not looking at what the bankers are doing. So, this is nothing new. We've had this for centuries, divide and conquer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the mafia became an industry for Hollywood, as well as like the Holocaust and World War II. So it's kind of like the newest generational trend to make and capitalize money off of. First, it was the Prohibition, then the Holocaust, and then where are we at today? We've got 9/11, we've got Ebola, we got a lot of.
Listen, let's just stay with the drugs and the prostitutes.
Yes.
Very interesting topic. Not that I know too much about them. All I know about them is in Italy, in the UK, in Spain, they're now adding on about 2 percentage points, 2% of gross national product. They're now adding in drugs and prostitution into gross national product, because that's very important. It means that if you have a couple of percent extra that you can count on, that you actually owe less. It's such a scam. It's such a scam. You look in Spain, UK, France, they're now adding in prostitution and drugs into the gross national product.
That's pretty interesting. So they're introducing the black market into their gross national product. That's very cool.
Read Zero Hedge if you want more info on that. He's covered it quite extensively. I mean, this has been the problem. The problem is, you have to understand is, politicians, presidents, prime ministers, first ministers, whatever you call these dickwads, they're in for a certain number of years, 4, 5, 6, 7. It depends on what it is too. They can be obviously removed after a scan, but they're coming in inheriting bullshit. They're coming in inheriting from ex-pedophiles, ex-scammers, and their living depends on it. So it's just going on. The whole system, the whole political system is in shams, but none of them will admit it, because if you're, for example, if you're a French politician, you can have several mandats, they call them, several different dossiers, different folders, or whatever you want to call them. And these people will get paid per one. So if you're a politician, you get about €6,000, probably about $7,000, maybe a little bit more a month, and you can survive very well in France. That's very good. So when you become a politician, why would you vote yourself out? Would you not vote yourself into the money system? And France is just typical. But they vote themselves into this political bullshit that we are in right now, that every time something happens, they want to vote on it. But the problem is they have no ideas. They're politicians. Politicians are not there across the board, absolutely across the board, from time immemorial, from the Romans, the Greeks. Politicians aren't there to solve problems. They're there for continuation.
Yeah, you bring up Greek and Rome. That's not much has changed since.
Why would it? Why would it? Listen, they get the benefits, they get the drugs, the hookers. It's now coming into the economy because they have to, they're trying to bring down the debt. And that's what they're doing. So if you owe, like America does, like 100 trillion,
And counting.
I'm counting on which set you're counting on. But if you say, well, that's 1,000% of our GDP, and then you bring in the hookers and the drugs and all this stuff, and say, well, it's only 600%. There's hope, but we've gone past hope. So we're now in an era of media bosses headlines, Ebola scares, Ukraine scares, Syria, chemical weapons use, blah 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 blah. Where the airplane shot down over Ukraine by our guys, blamed on Russia. They were going to start a war for that. Why is that not in the news? Oh, because they discovered that it was our planes that fired the weapons. Okay.
Yeah, it's too bad that certain incidents like the Gulf of Tonkin and things of that nature, those set up false flags, weren't being exposed right away to alter the course of history.
Yeah, absolutely. Gulf of Tonkin kind of sticks with me as being one of these Alex Jones moments that he kind of got credence because he came up with that before a lot of us figured that out. But I don't pay too much credence to that.
Mm-hmm. It just seems like hoaxes in general have been catalysts for starting wars. That's the only point.
Oh, absolutely. Well, elitists start the wars.
And they have us peons, Europeans.
If I wanted to start a war with you, how would I finance it? Quickly solved. I couldn't fight you, you couldn't fight me. The war is solved, which most people would do. But these people can print money, create databases like Al-Qaeda, which is a database, now which is called ISIS, ISIL, JISIL. And, where will this bring us?
To more war. To an ongoing perpetual war.
Selling more war weapons.
Yes, yes. Now, wouldn't you say that the Jews want a World War III to occur?
Not sure of that.
No.
I don't see the
cost benefit.
I have to say, when you say the Jews, and it's a very good question, the Jews do this and all that. I believe that a couple of 100,000 Jews, 300,000 or 400,000 Jews, were slaughtered during World War II. Not 6 million by any, just died, typhus, starvation. People shot them. Whatever.
Yeah, it's wartime. Sure.
It's wartime, and he who controls the publicity, he controls the media bosses, and they're fractioners or bankers are up on the top, but the media bosses, these are these Jewish guys. In America, you can see that five of the six, we always have Rupert Murdoch. We don't know whether he's a Jew or not. His mother is Jewish, so but the rest of the other five companies that own the whole entire media in the US, 96% are Jewish. So do they have an agenda, homosexual agenda? Absolutely. Destruction of the family, destruction of all other races, absolutely. Did they pull off 9/11? Absolutely. It wasn't Saudi Arabia that pulled off 9/11. Only people close in. There are no. I won't say there's no Saudis that are spies in the US. I'm not going to say that. Anyone can say I'm a spy. I'm a spy for for the chocolate company. But only the Israelis, the dual citizens, could have made NORAD fly off to Iceland only that we know about the Israeli companies that were involved in building in the Twin Towers, the moving company and things like that. And a lot of other information has come out. There's no links absolutely to Saudi except for bin Laden. And I posted one on bin Laden tonight, a newspaper clipping from about a couple of decades ago, that a former Mujahideen fighter is going for peace. It's on my Twitter stream, twitter.com/Ognir2. It's one of my last tweets. It's a little photo of bin Laden turning for peace. And all of a sudden he was the 9/11 mastermind when we had, looking back on the day of 9/11, we had all the Israelis on Benjamin Netanyahu is good for Israel, is good for Israel. Now we know, and kind of what I think has been really annoying the last few weeks is people posting Alex Jones. And I said, he shilled on 9/11. And I said, Alex Jones retarded the 9/11 movement by several years for his shilling, with his shilling. And he lied the whole way. I lost about, let's say I lost a year of my life. And, I end up meeting people like Darrell Bradford Smith and people that had the truth. Whatever happened between myself and Darrell, or whatever Darrell tried to do to me is different. But the message was the same. The message is true. You said it in your introduction. I occasionally do radio shows and say what? We know who runs the thing.
So when you don't want to regurgitate the same old information is what you're saying. That's why you space out.
I can read off my Twitter feed. I can read, something happened there and Israel are massacring Israelis driving nice cars on the special motorway that Arabs can't drive on. But
I lost audio.
Ognir, drop, man.
You want to throw on a tune?
Yeah, I'll put on a tune there now.
we had such energy involved, of course.
Recently until we got cut off, and we're back. So Ognir, let's pick up where we left off.
Recently in the news is this special secret 2003 report that the Saudis did it, and basically what I would like to say that is an instant shill alert. Anybody that pushes the Saudis were involved. Of course they were involved. The Saudis, anyone that says the Saudis was an idiot, but of course the British knew about it. The people that needed to know, the Judeo Anglo-Saxons knew about it. And the Saudis, the day after 9/11, all the bin Ladens leave in two planes. They were well aware of it. But, apparently there's this secret document hidden in Congress somewhere, 26-page document that indicates that Saudi Arabia was highly involved in 9/11. 19 of the so-called hijackers were Saudis and whatever. Instant chill alert should come. Anyone pushing that is bullshit. Israel did 9/11. We've already done the research. We didn't need to study for 14 hours a day, Alex Jones. We called you out. We called Alex Jones retired. He should be arrested. He retarded our movement because we had such energy. I don't know what year people joined. I don't know what movement you joined, well, I don't even want to say what names, groups. I'm just talking about the year you became aware of problems that the media aren't covering, the government aren't covering. What year was that? And then you can kind of, figure out what the propaganda is currently going on. Pick the country, basically pick the country, and it's going on. Maybe not South America, not so much. Anywhere where the Jews don't have a strong foothold. Let me just ask a very quick side note on Nicaragua. Nicaragua in South America. Absolutely backward, beautiful people, absolutely beautiful people. Some great people come from there, and we have a good friend from the Info Underground. We have a good friend from there. He worked in Dublin, and he speaks very good English. And I've had him on a couple of times. And the last time I had a chat with him was about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago. And he told me he was back in Nicaragua, back in the crap and the shit, and back in the Middle Ages. And what he said to me, which I still remember, and he knows who he is, good friend. He said to me, the people in Nicaragua from the TV think that the president of Nicaragua, whoever the hell he is, no one knows, except people there, think that he's a world leader. That always, I said, what? Power of the media.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. And each country has their own flavor of it, depending on their particular society and its structure. So with the Nicaragua, they had that whole, what was it, the controlled leader that they had, Noriega, right? Wasn't that him? And he sold out the Jewish power structure and saw what was happening to his people, and then
you can't listen. You can't all of a sudden take back all this drug money. When I was growing up, they had this documentary that said that $800 million a day was flowing through the banking system with illegal narcotics. And that was when I was a kid. So we can imagine now that is basically the system, which, was the point I brought up to you earlier on, that in the UK, in Italy, in Spain, they're adding on prostitution and drugs into what they owe, which makes it look like they owe less. But, the problem is still there. Who's running it? Historically, if we look back historically, we can look back on a massive attack on the poor Chinese people, where giving out free heroin, opiate samples, going back 160, 170 years. We had massive drug dens in China that were forced on the Chinese people by Vital, by Rothschild money. With a front man up doing his bidding for him. So I think actually basically the thing that woke me up the most was that I discovered in one of the earlier BitTorrents I downloaded that the Americans had smuggled back heroin in the bodies of dead Americans. That was one of the most shocking things that I'd ever heard.
Oh, during Vietnam, right?
During Vietnam, absolutely. But what I'm saying is I'm learning about,
Right, people. I know, Bob, I'll say hello to you personally because you're here in the chat, man. It is very late here. What everyone was listening to there was a broadcast that we did back in 2014 when Nick Sparrow, also known as Bread and Circus, was doing a show, and I produced that show from on Outside Radio, which is my own radio station, and I've been neglecting for the past few years. I haven't done really anything on it, but it's there. It's always playing old broadcasts. You know, it's always still, streaming. I kept it going, but I'll say good night to everyone that's tuned into it, and that's the thing. I'm pausing it now at about an hour into it. It's actually an hour and 4 minutes. And the next time I will stream the rest of it, or maybe just start it from the beginning at a more reasonable time. But a shout out to Bob Paxson there, who's been in the chat. And there was another lad here as well earlier on. I just want to shout out to him as well. Brussels sprouts. You've been around as well, man. You know what's going on. So yeah, I'll say thanks for tuning in, and I will play the rest of this sooner rather than later. But at the moment, it's like 5:15 over here in Ireland. It's silly o'clock. So all right, lads, take care. Good night, Bob. Good night, Brussels sprouts, and God bless you. Take care.